him at all because he's someone that doesn't need to be idolized. I completely agree with you, Paul, about the propaganda that's been used for him.
Wait, this
audio is still a little bad.
Yeah. Yeah, the microphone doesn't seem to be working for him.
Yeah. Well, we've only just gone live anyway.
That's too bad.
Paul has joined the silent realm.
Yeah. I had some questions for him about beauty. It's something that he talks about quite a bit when it comes to artwork. And I had some things I wanted to say about that myself. I have a friend right now in Sweden, a gal I met in Barcelona 21 years ago, and we've reconnected about 4 years ago, and she's in a hospital right now, and she's not doing very well, and so I'm kind of worried about my friend, and I'm hoping to see her this summer and get back over there. Oh my gosh, she just sent me a message right now. Yeah.
Oh, he sent you a message.
She just sent me a message right now. Yeah, here it is right here.
Oh.
Yeah. Here's the message she sent me. I don't even know if you can see that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, she just sent me a message right now. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna talk to her real quick.
Hello.
I'll get right back to you.
Hello.
Hello.
So how's it going in Paris, Paul?
Can you hear me?
Oh man, this is such a mess.
Hello. Hello.
How are things going in Paris, Paul?
I guess they're really quiet.
I'm not sure what happened.
Things are really quiet in Paris.
So you said you live in Paul's time zone?
Yeah.
Where do you live, Joaquin?
The Netherlands.
You live in the Netherlands, huh?
Yeah.
Where do you live there?
In Zaandam, which is near Amsterdam.
Right. Where there exactly?
Not in the park, but next to the Darwin Park.
Okay. Huh. How long have you lived there?
I don't know, like 2 years.
Okay. Huh.
Not a bad place to live.
Yeah. Well, they're a little nicer than the Brits.
Well, I mean, I live in the Turkish area.
I see.
Which, I mean, generally it's not so bad, but sometimes it's bad.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry Paul can't be part of this discussion. That's too bad. I was really hoping for him to join in here. If his microphone's not working, that's going to be really too bad.
Oh, he's back.
Hey.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Can you hear
me? I can barely hear you. You're cutting in and out.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
And we're. Oh man.
Yeah, he's cutting in and out. Yeah, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do this another time, Joaquin. I'm not sure if this is going to work out.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. I can cover it in the video myself rather than having a group conversation. I'll just cover it in a video myself. It might be better that way.
Okay.
But the information I had came from some doctors from Harvard and from Stanford universities, and I don't think they realized that the stuff that they had, the stuff that they knew was related to art history and how interesting it would be to actually uncover that information, because so many places on the internet you read about Van Gogh having bipolar disorder, having schizophrenia, and all kinds of different mental illnesses. And they, you know, people idolize him for all this stuff that they read about him being crazy. But what's so funny was I don't think he was crazy at all, and that's just the thing. You know, and that's what I wanted to talk about, was how we're never going to know what was in his mind, but there's a lot of things that we do know, and we can point that out, because I've studied a lot about the brain, so I can talk to my own doctors about things on their same level as much as possible, so I can understand myself and some of the things that I do, because of the behaviors that I have, you know. And so it's not uncommon for me to find myself with a paintbrush in my mouth and paint on my face time and again. And so I've often questioned my doctors in the past, well, why is that? You know, why do I stick a paintbrush in my mouth? And it's not as crazy as you might think. And so, and I'll get to that, why I do that. And it seems crazy right now, and I think people put all this madness on Van Gogh for doing such a thing, but it's not crazy at all once you explain it to someone. There's so much stigmatism that's placed on why he did that, I think, and why he would reach for kerosene and drink that. You know, it was an accidental thing that he did. It wasn't something that was purposely done. And when I have my little cups of turpentine that I have to be really careful not to drink them, because oftentimes when I'm painting, I'm gonna set my I have to make sure, if I'm drinking coffee, which is typically what I'm drinking when I'm painting, I'm not going to set a cup of coffee anywhere near my turpentine. And I love to drink coffee when I paint, because that's what gets me going. And so I have to make sure not to do that, because if I do, then I'm going to find myself at any random moment picking up my cup of turpentine and possibly drinking that. And I can totally explain that. What's that?
I think even I might have that problem.
Who does?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, because I'm an airhead, but maybe it's different for you.
You're an airhead. I've never heard that one before.
No,
I've never heard that one before.
Me. I'm the airhead.
Well, when I read about all these things that people write about Van Gogh, you know, saying he had bipolar disorder and all this other stuff and schizophrenia, we're never going to know that. But when I read about this, the major psychologists around the world and all this other stuff, and people, how they idolize this guy for being crazy.
So what do you think that is?
Why do I think they idolize him for being crazy? Yeah. Maybe because in my perspective, I think it's the same reason people enjoy watching horror movies, because they probably enjoy telling themselves, maybe subconsciously, I'm glad that's not me in that situation. You know, it's some kind of a fantasy thing that they get out of watching that movie, that kind of a circumstance. You know, when they're sitting on a couch, you know, in a lovely situation, having popcorn or drinking a soda in their own home in a comfortable situation, and they're watching a horror movie and they can't wait to see somebody, you know, in a bad situation, and they watch this happen. They're in a way, sometimes I think, and I've heard it before, you know, maybe the reason is because they're glad to kind of tell themselves, maybe even if subconsciously, that they're glad it's not them, you know. And I believe that's true. You know, I believe that's true. And I think some people idolize him, not just because he had work where, and I agree with Paul totally, that it's even though he knew what he was doing in a major way, it's elementary. When I finish a piece of Van Gogh, which, I mean, I've got 12 of them right all over the place here. Some of them aren't here at my house, but I've got a ton of them right here. I can just pull off the wall and show you. But it's not that difficult to do. You know, it wasn't difficult for me to step in his shoes and do it. And there's several reasons why I feel like I connect with him more than any of the other artists. And it's not because it's an elementary type of thing, because he did know what he was doing, and he had his own way of doing things. But I wanted to Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What would you say of the idea that people idolize him for being crazy because it fits this certain perspective of art and artists as being some sort of, what would you say, sort of extremely progressive, contrarian? People don't believe him at first, but then later they're it sort of idea.
They don't what with him at first? They don't.
So like you make a painting, they say you're crazy, maybe you are, but you know better somehow because you've got some sort of vision, and then later you're famous, and then it's like, ah, he's an artist. It sort of fits into that image of what Paul calls it, the criminal prophet artist, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting title for that. Yeah, I mean, it's a certain story to follow. I mean, I think that's. I mean, there's a good peace of mind to that. Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. Yeah,
I think
certainly. So, yeah,
familiar image to suppose nowadays somehow, problem because of the contemporary art thing, probably.
Right, right.
So all of art is like that, according to some view of it.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. What I wanted to cover again was getting back to Van Gogh and why he chewed his paintbrushes and reached for the kerosene, was known to do that,
right.
and why he placed himself in an asylum. Okay. I don't want to talk about cutting the ear because there's so much we don't know about that situation. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was why I found myself in situations where I know exactly what I'm doing, but I can't stop myself from doing it, and in situations where I've actually woken up and found pain on my face, literally on my mouth, and said, oh no, not again. You know, I can't believe that happened again. Now, if Van Gogh was a painter, or wasn't a painter, he never would have done that. And I can tell you exactly what he would have done because of what I know, because of the disability that I have, because his disability was so similar to mine. And
certainly no disability in speech, man.
I'm sorry?
It's certainly no disability of speech.
Well, actually, part of it is. It's called speech arrest. That's one of the things I want to talk about. I have epilepsy. Now, the thing about epilepsy, that's something that Van Gogh had. I was going to talk about that a lot, actually, and I wanted to share this video with a lot of people. There's a community, a small community on YouTube of people who have epilepsy, and this is a video I'm hoping to share with some of those people because a lot of those people are artists. A lot of them are painters because that's one of the only things that they can do sometimes because it's hard to have a job, and typically they find themselves painting or doing some kind of artwork in one way or another. And I don't know why typically people like that fall into this category, but there are certain categories. But people with epilepsy tend to have more than one type of seizure. It's not unusual. There's seizures where there's over 40 different kinds of seizures. And if you have epilepsy, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when somebody says they have epilepsy?
It's bright lights and shaking.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. What else comes to your mind?
Sort of like blinking or sort of dense, repetitive. I guess that's like a seizure too. I haven't really witnessed any of that.
Right. Well, you'd be correct about repetitive stuff. And that has to do exactly with you covered one of the things right there as far as repetitive stuff. And that has to do with exactly what Van Gogh did when he put the paintbrushes in his mouth.
Okay.
It was called an automatism. If he wasn't a painter, he would have still had automatisms, but without a paintbrush in his mouth. He would have been doing like a behavioral characteristic that's a motor function similar to what would look like sign language. It would have been a gesture, a hand gesture, that would have been similar to clothes picking or sign language, something that looks like sign language. Now, because he was constantly doing movements with a brush, that gesture is going to come out when he's got paint on his brush, he's working on a canvas, and the next thing you know, he has a seizure.
Right.
And that brush is going to go straight to his mouth.
Yeah, because it's like it's his hand or something for as far as
his hand's making a motor movement.
Yeah.
Right. And because of the focal points in his brain were possibly local. Now, they said he had temporal lobe epilepsy. Well, because of the behaviors that he exhibited, you can actually almost, in some ways, almost completely today, with the information we have, diagnose exactly what he had and the several different kinds of seizures he had in his occipital lobes, which are in the back part of your brain where your vision is connected.
Okay.
And so it's almost funny how today art historians still debate a lot of things on that in psychologists, because doctors today have that almost completely figured out. So he wasn't crazy, and you can be still conscious when if you're an artist and you're having a seizure and you accidentally, you're not trying to put a paintbrush in your mouth, but you're having an automatism and you're struggling not to to make that movement, but you're still taking that paintbrush and you're making a repetitive gesture. And that paintbrush is going straight to your mouth like this over and over and over again. Right. And it's the same thing with a cup. You may be, particularly going for a cup of coffee or whatever, and you're going to make that movement, but you're not 100% aware. You're in semi-consciousness. You're having a partial seizure. You're not 100% unconscious, and it's a different type of seizure maybe, and you're unaware of the fact that it's a cup of coffee, or you're a little confused. So you're reaching for a cup, and that cup has turpentine in it, or like Van Gogh had kerosene. So he was not 100% aware of what he was doing.
Because of the visual lobe.
Yes, and also because of it, depending on where his focal points were, where the seizure began, and the stimulation in his brain, where that stimulation began, depending on whether it was a focalized seizure, whether it was a generalized seizure, if it was a generalized seizure that spread to another region of the brain, or whether it was a focalized seizure that could have spread to a complex partial where he was unconscious. Hey, Paul's back.
Yes.
Nice.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hey, Paul.
Am I echoing badly?
No,
you sound good now.
Okay, I can barely hear you guys, but I can hear you, so continue.
Oh, good.
So Mr. Oil here was talking about epilepsy and what happens.
Yeah, I remember from his video how he describes that in the business of eating the brushes and everything.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So in my opinion, Van Gogh wasn't crazy at all. He just had a disability where there may have been times where he was completely unconscious and unaware of what he was doing during this motor function. And there may have been times where he knew exactly what he was doing, but was struggling for that not to happen, because he was a painter. The majority of the time he had a brush in his hand. So he's used to these typical, doing these typical things on a canvas. But when he has an automatism, making repetitive hand gestures, and because he's got a brush in his hand, those hand gestures, if you're not a painter, you're not going to have a paintbrush in your hand. But if you do, that brush is going to go straight to your mouth.
Yeah, well, Van Gogh isn't exactly considered crazy, but because, for instance, we have his letters, and if you read his letters, he was a beautiful person.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And he had his whole relationship with Gauguin, which ended badly. Who knows why exactly? I mean, maybe it's known why. And people loved him. But he had these troubles which were so severe that he had to be taken care of and so on. So he had a rough time, but he's not considered to be just some kind of nut.
Right, exactly. And I think if they had known more about his condition in those days, I think he would have had a better time understanding some of the things that he was dealing with.
Well, it could be, but he was always taken care of course. His brother took care of him. and the people around him took care of him. So,
of course, they didn't understand everything.
Well, yeah, but
probably enough.
Who understands everything about anything? So
true.
So, Van Gogh's life was tragic, but it wasn't tragic because he was neglected and rejected. And,
it's a flavorful kind of tragedy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very strange story.
Yeah,
very strange story. But it's certainly whatever was troubling him had a lot to do with how, for instance, he didn't have much success as a painter. But I don't think he cared that much either.
Right, I don't think he cared that much either. Yeah, no. I don't.
So he was, he wanted to be a priest. He wanted to help people. He was a very spiritual, idealistic person, and very original. Very, very special person.
Right. I certainly learned a lot by doing copies of his work, and really trying to learn his methods of painting. I even when I do stuff that I just come up with on my own today, in thinking of things to do, I can't not help but see a piece of what I learned from him in everything I do. It's almost impossible. It's impossible to cut him out.
I can relate to that a lot.
What's that?
I can relate to that a lot.
What, via manga?
Yeah. I mean, I was copying a guy for a while as well, and at some point I went on to do my own thing. But then, as I was progressing in my quote-unquote own style, I was realizing, like, wow, all of the stuff that I liked about this guy, I'm starting to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's very important to copy.
Yeah.
And all the great artists did practice that.
Reminds me a bit of natural writing history.
How so?
Or no, about this essay of liberal education, about how the great minds are accessible to us through somewhat great minds who are teachers, and then there's pupils of pupils and so on.
Yeah, that's right. It's what I talked about in my video today. That there are these traditions, and we're in a way, there's this whole thing about individuality and collectivism. We're always, if we do anything in these traditions, unless we live kind of sort of a brutish life, but anything in art or music or any of the higher things, we're
Hello?
A lot of what we're doing is repeating that have already been done, to the extent, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. The story about that is the story of Velázquez. When Velázquez was a young painter, he was a purely Spanish kind of painter. And early paintings by Velázquez exist, and they're much closer to Zurbarán, And then Rubens came to Spain.
Him I know.
And he, as a Dutchman,
Yes.
And do you not know Velázquez?
I mean, if he's not in the little museums that I can go to, then
all right. Well, you look up Velázquez. I mean, he's one of the top 10 painters.
Okay.
Rod, I completely agree with that. My brother's a guitar player, and him and I have been musicians since we were pretty young. I'm 39 now, and we've been playing musical instruments since we were probably about 10 or 11 years old. And he's really got into really focusing on mastering his guitar playing. And I've kind of jumped out of guitar traditions and gotten into practicing playing more fluent banjo rather than a guitar. and sticking on to that. But one of the things I was talking to my brother about recently was how, and he was the one who mentioned this. We were talking about some of the world's greatest guitar players today, and all of them play rock and roll. They play Western blues. They play everything. But when they play their music that they come up with, the stuff that they are not composing, but they're just the stuff that they're showing when they make videos and post their stuff online. And these are the postmodern guitar players of today. These guys have covered Bach, they've covered Beethoven, they've covered all of these styles. And when it comes to it, just like you're talking about Velasquez and all of this stuff, it's once you've mastered the playing skill, what else is there to do besides make a composition? So a lot of these guys, what they enjoy doing is doing an improvisation upon what they already know. And I mean, what do you do once you've mastered a skill?
Well, that's right. I mean, that's a large part of it. That's a large part of it. But just to finish this story, what happened to Velasquez is Rubens said to him that he had to go to Italy and discover Titian, and he did that, and then he became Velasquez.
I see. Yeah.
And so Velasquez it's Titian plus a little bit of Velasquez. It's how he became himself. And then to talk about yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of these guys today, as far as not just painters, but even musicians, I think they're looking for that next person. You know, who are they going to discover? Because there's so much connection now because of the internet. I think they're waiting for a change. You know, the postmodernists are waiting for a change.
Well, who do you mean when you say postmodernists?
Well, we live in today. That's what I mean by that is we can't change the clock, because how else can I speak beyond postmodernism?
You just mean the people of today.
The people of today, yeah. The people of today, and the people who have mastered their techniques with music, and the people of today who are master painters or traditional painters, or who at least want to abide by those traditions, and actually are looking forward to those traditions in the practice of them, and they're looking to discover something different.
Well, I don't think there are any painters like that. I mean, there's the classical realists, but they're just practicing mimetism, very narrow kind of mimetism. And
what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, they think that painting is all about accurate representations of things, and sort of flashy looking photographic kinds of representation.
So they look at the old painters, the old masters, and they say, wow, this looks realistic, TM.
That's it. And then when you look at their paintings, it looks like sort of airbrushed photographs.
Oh, is that too flattering?
Well, I mean, they look, people who don't know anything about painting think they look really snazzy. And of course, it takes a certain amount of skill to do those things, except that, and certain branches of 19th century painting were tending in that direction. But it's just, it has nothing to do, say, with Rubens or Velasquez. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and that was something I wanted to talk about too, because I think this is where the word comes in right now in the discussion. I wanted to talk about beauty, because you often talk about that a ton, and this is the perfect time for me to throw that word in there. When we talk about doing things a certain way traditionally, or in the way that a lot of the neoclassicists are doing, because this is where in some way I kind of have a strange or no, I wouldn't call it strange, but a different perspective maybe, and this is my perspective. No matter what, this is exactly how I think. No matter what any artist does, it doesn't matter who they are. From my perspective, anything can look good, even if it's done traditionally. It can be beautiful in a certain way. but there's not a single artist on this planet who's going to be able to accomplish true beauty that is pure and genuine. And what I mean by that, here's what I mean by that. Everything else, everything beyond a certain standard is secondary. Okay, the world it was created by a creator who has a standard of true beauty. Without us, I mean, we're not needed. We're not needed for anything. Okay. The reason, and from my perspective, like God, for instance, he speaks of himself as I am, because he doesn't need us. I mean, he doesn't need us at all. We're secondary to everything. So no matter what we make, I mean, he is beauty. That's just it. He is beauty. We can't make him. He makes us. And so no matter what we make, it's only going to be a reflection of something, because we are a reflection of what he's created in a perfect design, because he is perfection. We can't do something in a perfect standard. We can make standards for ourselves, but those are man-made standards, and they're all secondary. So I enjoy, I mean, that's where I have fun with art. It's like, it's a fun thing to do, and I enjoy looking at beautiful things that people make, but I still see them as secondary to my own creations, which, I strive for these abilities and these skills, but no matter what I accomplish, I'm always going to see everything as being secondary. I'll never see it as being perfect.
Yeah, what's that?
I say I can relate to that in some way, I think.
Yeah, but I agree, but you can put it also in Platonic terms. There's beauty. There's the idea of beauty, or absolute beauty, as people say, beauty in its ultimate splendor. And all we can do from our limited perspective, because we're born at a certain moment, our eyeballs are always in a certain place and at a certain time. We don't have universal understanding. We have partial understanding, and then we see things, and then we remember them, and everything is fragmented and partial and incomplete because of our incomplete nature, and so that we struggle to reflect a little bit of the splendor of this ultimate thing, and that's the best we can do. But the thing is that you can approach it more or less closely. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's not a good approach. Let me.
Right. Yeah. Right. No. I mean, I agree. Right. I would agree with that. Right. I agree with that. I mean, I'm just
putting it in Platonic terms rather than in religious terms. But it's not to say it another way, not to say anything different.
Right. I get you. Right,
I could try saying somewhat different, but I think it would amount to something similar. I mean, I've made a video about, well, not about beauty per se, but about love. But obviously, beauty had a big part in that. But to somehow, I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched that. I think Paul has, but to sort of play on that, in terms of viewing the world as a creation, as all of that being secondary, and in some way, I would say not being quite real, in the sense that they're really facades hiding the fact that there's really this one existent being that is also perfectly beautiful, and all of that. Where, I mean, what do you do? Where do you get the idea of beauty from? It seems, looking at some particularly well-arranged situation in this creation, and getting some sort of intimation of how just a perfect arrangement of that is somehow elevating and looks more timeless, and you want to record that, and you want to somehow make, I mean, that's certainly a thing, and you get, I mean, that's why I said I could relate this, you get the sense that it's secondary, right? About how it's like, I'm doing this thing, but it's so partial and perhaps in some way petty that I'm involved in this, but still, there's
I enjoy living in the mystery. I mean, I enjoy living in the fact that I don't know everything. I'm never going to know everything. That's very, very true. We're never going to know everything. Everything is partial and incomplete. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy the fact that I love this fact that I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to have it all figured out, and that's fine because
it's unavoidable. Also, might as well be reconciled to it.
Yeah, I mean, guys, coming from a guy who was living in such a way that he was trying to like not acknowledge that, I'm really glad it gets to be that way. Honestly, it's tiring to everything.
Well, I see so many people who are trying to figure everything out, or with all the information that we have today, you know, no matter where they look, they find the answer they're searching for in one place or another, because there are so many places to go to look for the answer of the question they have.
A lot of comprehensive worldviews out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's confusion and everything. But I don't mind not having everything figured out. Yeah. You know, I don't mind, because I have enough inside me to know that doesn't matter at all. You know.
Well, you've got a depth that you're pursuing.
Well, yeah, that depth that I'm pursuing has already been given to me. I mean, you know, that's our. I have decisions to make. I can make those decisions, and you know, the decisions I make all have consequences. I mean, every second of the day. I mean,
you know, but another way to put it is we can only do our best, and we probably don't even do that. But that would be the maximum.
Oh man, that stings. No, I'm kidding. That's exactly right.
But you know, there's another way of thinking about beauty, and I'm not sure if it can be reconciled properly with the other way, which I have a Darwinian theory of beauty also.
Here we go. Here we go. Put on your Canadian accent, Paul.
I wish I could do accents. No, I think there's a link between love and beauty, and also this theory explains why there are so many fewer women painters than men.
Okay, now I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm curious as well.
I'm thinking symposium now.
Because I think the awakening to love and beauty happened through men's eyes, by seeing the female form.
Yes, Genesis 1. I mean Genesis 2, whatever it is.
Well, you'll explain that in a second, but
being held to account.
So that I think that, you know, there's the animals have this instinctive desire, so they come together by this instinctive desire, but it doesn't mean much to them. It happens. But with humans, because we have also our animal nature, this thing happens, but there's more to it. This instinctive thing is a perception, becomes a perception of beauty, which then expands out into emotions and attachment and so on, and reveals to us something greater. And I think the process of the revelation is that what we see in the female body, in the human body, ultimately, then we see it elsewhere metaphorically.
Yeah.
So that it's the line of serpentine beauty, which Hogarth talks about. Then we start to see that everywhere. That and other things, you know, the textures. The texture of skin, the texture of hair, the texture of the eyes, the texture of the mouth, and then the forms, which are all all the body forms are the line of serpentine beauty, which
there it is.
Gogh talks about. And then we see it in the landscape, we see it in architecture, and we end up seeing it everywhere. And then making it in the forms of art. Yes. But what we're seeing is that ultimate reality.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to ask, is how could it be that we can see it in everything? How could it permeate everything?
Because God created all things.
Yeah.
And man's mind corresponds to the cosmos. That's man's nature. He's an animal with a mind that's like the mind of God.
Yeah.
In the sense that man can be a friend to God. He's not omniscient, he's not omnipotent, but he's got a mind that like God's mind, it can't create the cosmos, but it can encompass the cosmos. We can imagine the cosmos.
Yeah.
We can't affect it. We can't create it, but we can observe it. We can conceive of it.
Some of us really love to do that.
My very first attempt at doing a realistic painting was a copy of Alexander Cabanel, The Birth of Venus.
Oh, I know that painting.
Yeah.
It's in New York.
Yeah.
I think there's several
versions. Have you
seen
that before, I guess, since you've lived in New York? That must have been nice.
Oh, yeah. I know it well. Well, Cabanel is one of the painters who inspires the classical realists. But Joachim and Jeff, you don't know who the classical realists are, I guess.
Well, you know what? I have a hard time defining them. I mean, I have a hard time placing them in a compartment because of the way I see the differences between so many people and the reasons that they do.
But they're so similar. It's a school. It started out with a few people.
I never. The thing is with myself, I've never been schooled, and I actually never expected to take off on oil painting. That's just the thing. I never actually expected to find myself with a brush in my hand and doing this. That's just, I never expected this is what I'd be doing. I thought I was going to be a professor of a college university. I mean, I ended up finishing a university and getting accepted to another one and going on, and then ended up having to drop out. And this was after I did my world travels and backpacking stuff. I thought, I need some education now. After I realized the people in Europe were educated in high school better than the Americans. After the conversations I had over there, I think
God, it's really not all that good here. I mean, I got through. Pretty much disqualifies it.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, but you've caught up since then, you are.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought they educate their kids more than America does. I realized that fairly.
The Americans grow up like weeds.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
We do.
Oh, you do. You got you.
Well, I'm in America. I'm not a kid anymore. Now I'm an old man.
Right, but I see what you mean.
I used to be a kid.
Yeah. Right. Well, so you know because you're in Europe. So that's how it is.
Yeah, but European education has fallen apart.
Has it really?
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago it was still much better.
Yeah.
Too many girls. Yuck.
Yeah, I remember 20 years ago the conversations I had with people. I was amazed. I couldn't believe it. It was totally different. People I talk with today that I've kept friendship with, they're the same age I am. So,
all the European children have become Americans.
Yeah, that's true. We're all Americans.
That's true.
Yeah, everybody's an American except they don't have Miranda rights.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, whenever the president tweets something, I call him the president, right? Just I can stop talking there. I think that's enough. Actually, that pretty much says it all.
Yeah, the Europeans, the Supreme Court decisions are as important in Europe as they are in America.
They're more
crazy.
important than our Supreme Court. I mean, legitimately, I do not hear people talk about Dutch politics as much as about Black people in America.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's not just like I mean, I think I'm partially cynical about it. Partially, I also think that, you know, we look to America as like, oh man, can modernism still work? Can we still, like, is this still gonna?
Yeah.
Things were changing. When I got to Turkey, I remember Romania and Bulgaria. I wanted to do the Carpathian Mountains in different areas, and I'll never forget some of the experiences I had over there because they were just moving into democracy. 9 years prior, they were still in a communist in a communist government. And so the people there were utterly poor. It was totally different. I remember doing negotiations on the street with money. People had calculators out on the street, and I remember people pulling out their calculators and you know, making their own interest rates. And I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I thought that's
lending money to each other on the street.
Say again.
Were they lending money on the street? Was that what it was?
Lending money? No, I was giving them money. In fact, I had several different kinds of money. This was before euros. I was smart enough by that time. This was on a different trip to Europe when I went to the Eastern European places, and I was smart enough by that time to bring more American and German money when I had been through Germany, because that had a higher value at that time anyway. And so those made the best trades. And so, you know, I would bring the German money in Switzerland and Swiss money, and use whatever of the American dollars I had as well. And they made the best trades over there. And the people would use their calculators to make interests. When I would give them my money, they would give me Romanian cash or Bulgarian cash. And so, you know, I helped some tourists. Actually, they didn't even know what was going on. And so I explained what was happening, and I helped a couple from San Francisco one time. I remember exactly, you know, some of the stuff I experienced. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's quite the story. You've probably got a ton of those.
Yeah. Wow. You're widely traveled.
Yeah. Well, I love traveling. You know, it's something I like to do. Yeah.
Do you speak some languages?
No.
You speak Dutch? Come on.
No. If I spoke any languages, it should be Spanish. You know.
Should be Dutch because you're a Van Gogh fan.
Yeah, just for living in California, I should be speaking Spanish. You know.
No. Me llamo Maria. That's the only Spanish song I know. That ended like stupid hit song that I want to forget so badly. But
well, Joachim, are you working on your drawings?
Am I working on my drawings? Where's this coming from?
Because I want to talk about art.
Oh yeah. Just never mind chopping down a very interesting conversation about Spanish.
Yeah, I want to grab a painting I am actually working on today. I feel like you know what, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to grab something I'm doing today. Let me go grab this.
Okay, well, that's good. Let's get some actual art in here. Yeah, I was looking for an artwork of mine to use for the thumbnail, but I can't change the thumbnail of the live stream yet. So I have to do that when it's finished.
Thing here. Why am I not getting a screen?
But I am absolutely working on my drawings. I've been drawing nonstop.
All right. You've been drawing what?
Pretty much nonstop.
I don't even know what you can see out of this, but here's a painting of a friend of mine.
Is your camera turned on?
This is a friend of mine in Sweden right here.
For a second.
I don't see anything. Oh, wait. Is there something? No, I don't see anything. How about if I click this button?
I'm doing several pieces at a time.
Oh, hold on. I think I know what it is. I have to up the bandwidth. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. Let me put that all the way up to HD. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, God, you guys are breaking up here.
Yeah, it's because of the bandwidth.
I see. Sorry about that.
No, we have to see it.
So this is just one of the pieces I feel like has been overly painted. I've overpainted it, but I can't stop getting back to it just because I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed holding on to it and continuing. You know, I have a hard time telling myself when to stop. That's one of my biggest problems. Is knowing when something's finished and figuring that out. You know, nothing ever gets finished.
Let me tell you, Jeff. With painting, the best you can do is give up.
Yeah, I can't. That's my problem. It's like nothing's ever finished, and I have a hard time stopping. That's why I do like sometimes I'll do 10 pieces at a time. So, yeah, sometimes I'll do so many pieces at a time.
I wish I could get another look at it. But.
Yeah. Let me.
Excuse me. Yoga just showed up. Very important stuff.
Do you see that, Paul?
We've got video.
Yeah.
Oh, you got video? I don't know what you guys can see in here.
I see a lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it. But how about the bottom of it? The lower part. Let's see the bottom.
Can you see the bottom here?
So what's the idea
of this painting?
Yeah.
Well, my friend, I have a friend who lives in a town called Ljusdal in Sweden, and her and I have been friends for a long time. And she loves to. She's a really good. She created her own business, and she's just such a hard worker, such a really inspirational lady. I mean, talk about someone who's independent and just such a really good person. And I love doing paintings for my friends. That's kind of one of the biggest things I like to do. I don't paint for sales necessarily. I mean, I've sold paintings and I don't paint for fame or for money. I paint just to paint for my friends. And my biggest
for my friends.
My biggest goal as a painter is to actually make the best paintings I can make because of my own criticism for the knowledge I have of art history and of all that I can accomplish in understanding artwork, to make the best paintings I can for my friends and the best paintings I can of my family members for my own house decoration, basically, and that's it.
Well, I mean, that's basically what I do too.
I mean, I have no other reason for it. I mean, I can't find any other reason, especially today.
Yeah, I suppose there's a point there.
I have a painting right here. I've never shown his right in front.
Can you hear me?
It's kind of a reminder of a Van Gogh, I guess.
There you go. I've shown your video. That's flowers. I've got video.
Yeah, I like painting flowers. In between works, I do flowers. I call it flower freedom. It kind of separates my mind from what I need to do, because flowers are so
nice.
It's just a way of kind of erasing my mind from what I need to do, from what I want to do next, I guess. This kind of was a way of taking Van Gogh and doing something. This was done about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I did this was just to get a new color on the board. That was it.
What do you mean getting new color on the board?
Have I been today? You mean?
No, I mean, how do you? What do you mean by new color on the board?
Well, I got this color called Brilliant Orange. When I first started painting, it was I did nothing but buy these brilliant colors and
Brilliant Orange,
the craziest colors you could imagine. I bought because I didn't
people
know
who brought you annoying orange.
Well, I didn't know a single thing about painting, Joaquin. When I first started painting, I didn't know anything about it. So I would get the wildest colors you can imagine, and I would just start throwing them on the canvas.
Well, I think Paul's having problems.
Well, Paul doesn't throw the wildest colors on the canvas. That's just it, you know. But when I learned,
Paul's having audio problems. He's.
Oh, I see.
Paul, you there?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I want to know how big that painting of that girl is.
Oh, this one is. Let's see. Funny enough, I actually have a measuring tape here. Let's see. It is 16 inches wide it's 20 by 16.
Oh, listen, can I see the bottom of it? I never saw the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Part of the painting. Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That painting is worthy of Cabanel.
Are you serious? Well, that's I'll take that with a thank you, man. I still haven't lost Van Gogh in that painting, but thanks, Paul. I appreciate that.
There's more Cabanel than Van Gogh in that painting.
Cool, coming from you, I appreciate that, man. Because you've got like 30 years on me or something.
Who's Cabanel?
I still can't get my sculpture out of this stuff, and I mean, he's flat surface. I mean, that's when going back to my Cabanel work, I actually chose him. Speaking of the neoclassicist painters, even though I haven't been able to give them a definition or a certain compartment of understanding, I chose him totally out of a particularity because of the salon and what he was saying to the people who were out of the salon and saying, well, your works aren't finished and all of this stuff. And I thought, well, because of where I was coming from with Van Gogh and all of these other painters, I thought, well, he would be the perfect person to start with because he hated the Impressionists. And I thought, I'm going to start with the hater of the Impressionists so I can begin a new thing here. And so
their work was unfinished. And what else did he say?
He said their work was unfinished and he didn't like it. He didn't want it in the salon. He didn't think they belonged there, Paul, at all. Yeah. He didn't think they belonged there at all. I thought he would be a perfect person to start with. I have his copy hanging in my room right now. Well, it's not hanging; it's on the floor. But I have it. He was the one who helped me pay attention to the surface of the painting or of a canvas, So I knew that it was there. The space and everything, not for composition, but just for the flat surface work.
So who are we talking about now?
Alexander Cabanel.
How
do you spell that?
Cabanal, something like that.
Sorry, that's what?
I'm not sure. I think it's Cabanal.
CAB, yeah, ANEL.
Oh, EL.
Yeah.
That's all right. Let me see. No, I'm getting like video games. That's not right at all. Or maybe I'm getting Fortnite. Is that it? I doubt it. I doubt that's it. Let's see.
Put in the Birth of Venus.
Sorry?
The Birth of Venus. You want me to grab that one?
Huh?
You want me to grab that one?
What? Well, you've got a copy?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Then we'll see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put the video back on.
Show it to you. I left 2 cherubs out.
That's probably a good idea.
Hey, the more cherubs, the better.
Well, I mean, you're only allowed. We were only allowed to make those 2.
Well, we want to play by the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe because I'm a rebel. I want to get the rules back. Oh, the old rules, that is, not the new ones.
Rebels for rules. It's like Jews for Jesus.
Well,
This was done back in 2010, so this is this is work that's almost 10 years old, but I don't even know what you can see here.
Hold it farther back, Jeff. Hold it farther back.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, let me move this chair.
We're going to redecorate your home.
Oh, jeez.
Put new drapes on, or else we can't see it. Oh, there we go.
There we go. A little just a little farther back.
Yeah.
And a little to your right. A little to your right.
Don't tease him like that.
That's fine. That's good.
I'll up the resolution.
Now talk. So
what you can see is where I was trying to get away from. In my mind, what I think you can see is where I was trying to get away from impressionist work, you know, and how I had no idea what I was doing here with an ocean, and you know, I was trying to do things that were beginning for me at that time, you know.
Yeah.
The time I did this, I had no idea what flat surface work was. This was all new to me, and I was still learning, you know, color stuff. So to me, this is fun to look back at and actually see what I was doing. You know, I love looking back at older works and taking reminders to myself of the stuff. I think one of the biggest important parts of artwork is actually studying the things that you've done and using your diaries, or if you keep a diary, to you know, take notes. I had a wonderful teacher who was a sculptor. He was a potter. The only art teacher I've ever had, actually, the only art teacher I ever had, and the best art teacher was a sculptor. He was a potter, and he says you got to keep diaries and keep notes of the work you do, you know, where you learned something or made a mistake. And I always
good advice.
Yeah, thought that how important that was.
Jeff, do you have any of your Van Gogh copies?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them. I don't have all of them, but I've got a bunch of them.
One?
What's that?
Would you show one of them?
Yeah. Which one do you want to see?
I want to see the one you like best.
The one I like best? Oh boy, that's going to be a hard one.
Or one of the ones you like best.
Yeah, I'll show you the newest one. Actually, the one that I'll show you the most recent one.
Looks like you've got to educate this one, Paul.
This isn't my favorite one because it's pretty new, but
I like that.
I've escaped a lot of the stuff that he was doing. So
that's a copy?
Yeah.
That's a copy?
Yeah.
Huh, I don't recognize the painting.
It's the poplars. There's the guy who's breaking the path, and then the priest and the priestess walking down the pathway. I did a lot of things that were not his in here, purposely. I purposely did things that weren't his. Some of the things that I did that were new, I could tell you exactly what he did that I did not do. What I didn't do was in a wash that Van Gogh did. He washed the canvas when I didn't wash the canvas. I jumped right into it. I just jumped into it because I didn't feel like taking the time. I was like, no, I'm not going to wash the canvas. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to jump in and do this.
I just saw your pants.
Put some color on it first?
Say again?
What do you mean by wash the canvas? Put some color on it first?
Oh, what I mean is like use turpentine and color and use a rag and go over it in a brush to wash the canvas with some color, and using the same colors that he did by studying his. Yeah, put some color on it first, exactly. I just took a brush and started putting color on it in an opaque way, in sculpting, rather than taking turpentine and actually brushing it onto the canvas and washing it kind of with the background. Because he took the sky on this, and there's a cloudy sky with a storm coming, and he washed that in first as he was there in the experience, and then he painted the trees over it, and you can see that there's some there's some like a pink, almost sun-setting light in a way in the background here. And I didn't create that in a wash. Instead, I just placed that on there with the crimson that he used, because that's the same color he used in the painting. And I had some of that left over.
Wow. I like it.
Oh, thanks.
That's not my favorite.
You have a favorite?
Yeah, I do, actually. And it's not my best painting either. It's not one of my best paintings. My best painting is not even in my house.
Well, that's how it is sometimes.
Best is all, I mean, it's all different, you guys. That's all different.
Well, it's how it is sometimes. Sometimes you do something you like because there's something in there that, oh.
This is my favorite painting. I mean, you think about Vincent van Gogh, what was his favorite painting? Nobody talks about that being his best, you know?
Yeah. Hold it back farther.
Yeah.
Higher up. There. I want to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
This painting is my favorite painting out of all the work I've done. I finished it in 2008. Even though it's not the best piece of artwork I've done, it's still my favorite for many reasons. Because of the attention I paid to the surface of the canvas.
What does it show?
What it shows is a main street in my town. The composition's terrible. I mean, I'm gonna talk about the drawing skills were terrible, but that's not what makes it a good painting in my perspective. I mean, there's so many things I like about it. It shows a main street downtown in the city I live, and it shows a path where people walk all the time. The street changed a little bit. Some of the things have changed here. However, there's two people sitting.
I see.
Yeah, they've got cups of coffee in their hand.
Oh yeah.
And in many ways, one of the face of this guy, in fact, as much as you might not like to hear it, I think it's almost what you might, even as rough as this is, he reminded me of like a Boucher face. In a way. I mean, as much as it's not detailed or anything like that.
Looks very peaceful.
And what's the red? This red in the foreground.
These are chairs. These are red plastic chairs that we're doing.
And is that a rug or what? Why is that? Is that brick or something?
Yeah, these are bricks. Actually, these are bricks.
I see. I get it. And then there's the road behind it. And
yeah, this is a brick road. There was some sgraffito. The first time I ever did sgraffito was right here. I just kind of scratched it off. These are bricks right here. Yeah, there's a little light up here. Yeah, with some trees in the background with a little, a little umbrella hanging out there that used to be there, and some stuff. I've done this street corner in my city, this exact street corner from different angles, in several different paintings that I have. Probably I've painted this street corner 4 different times.
Wow.
But it's just, even though I've done way better drawings, I mean, I have another drawing that's to talk about more precision in drawing. I mean, I can grab that right now.
Straight up drawing.
It's better composition, but it's just, the fact is it's not a good painting. It's, the drawing is right on, but the painting is not. That's just it.
What's that yellow thing behind the church?
Which one? This is actually a theater. A theater for
a theater. Well, what's on the upper right? Oh yeah, what's on the upper right?
Trees that were sticking out.
That.
Yeah, these are trees that were sticking out on the other side.
Yeah. What kind of trees?
Oh, they're sticking out from the right side. They're in the foreground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably hard.
You guys hear me?
That's a little confusing because it looks like they're behind the building.
Yeah, it kind of does, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
You have to make them come down lower or put in the trunk or something.
Yeah, it might be easier to see in person, but like I said, the painting.
Listen, I don't think that's such a bad painting.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I don't though. That's the thing. I mean, I just, it's not, to me, it's one of those things where it was like, okay, the drawing's right on, but the painting's not. There was so many things.
I think the composition starts to be interesting there.
Yeah, the composition's okay. It's okay. It's 80% composition, but painting, I've done far better painting. But I'm only a little over a decade in, and when it comes to talent, I don't have the talent. I have the practice. So
there's a secret in painting, a wonderful secret that you can't learn from Cabanel. You can learn it from Van Gogh, but you can't learn it from Cabanel.
What's that?
And that is that everything should be everywhere. Something you have to know, that all the colors and all the shapes are everywhere.
Well, that sounds a bit like Renoir as well.
Oh yeah, Renoir, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because he would do the reflective colors off of things. It's like, if you have a tree.
It's not about realism. It's not about increasing realism.
No,
it's about making the painting into a kind of living being, in a way. Not. It has to do with how what it is about wonderful paintings that makes them wonderful as paintings. I mean, even if you turn them upside down. So it's not about what they're pictures of.
I think I'm some.
That might be a little too abstract.
So what do you mean?
The handling, that the colors, the shapes, and the kind of shapes form a.
Is this also related to what you've spoken about before in terms of framing?
We're having audio problems again. Darn.
Oh, is that so? Audio problems?
Hello? I can hear you guys.
Can you hear me?
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
What I wanted to ask, Paul, is whether this is related in some way to what you talk about in terms of using the available surface totally to.
Well, that's this principle. The subject should fill the page. That's a rule I learned from Aaron. And the subject is whatever it is. I mean, let's say your subject is a man far away standing in an empty field.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's somebody's head. So the subject is whatever it is, and it should fill the page. And in other words, what you're really dealing with is the canvas or the page, the area you're going to paint on. That's what you're dealing with. And that relates to in another way, that relates to the surface, because ultimately painting is about decorating a surface.
Yeah.
And that has to be kept in mind, so that one doesn't fall into just this mimesis thing. And I think that the essence of painting is the dynamic between what we're painting and what painting is. That's where the real interest comes in.
Right. I would agree with that.
How?
Right.
Question. So imagine if your subject is this lonely guy standing on the field. What does filling the page with that look like?
Well, so what you're painting is, there's the field. Let's say there's the sky, and there's the guy.
Yeah.
And in other words, it's a certain thing that's there, and it's not just like there's this little guy stuck in the painting.
Yeah.
So that any part of the sky or any part of the field, that's the subject, and it should all really relate. Everything should relate to everything else and there's a whole, when I say relate to other things, I mean very specific things about how the colors are and how the shapes are organized, and how there's a lot to say about that. But in other words, it's you can approach painting in a way like, let's say you want to have a guy and you want to have a landscape. You can kind of paint a landscape, a sky. You put the sky in, it's blue, and then you put the land in, and it's, let's say it's green because it's grass, and then you put a guy in, and he's got black pants, and he's got a white T-shirt, and his hands and face are flesh colored, and so on. That you end up with something that's kind of like pop art, because there's no real relationship between those things. It's just the painting is arbitrarily divided up according to what you're imitating. Mm-hmm. And then these colors are being filled in because the green means the grass and the blue means the sky and so on. Whereas, how do so hard to talk about painting, but you're actually going to be decorating a surface, so that you're going to represent this thing, but you're putting colors down on the surface, and so you have to be sensitive to the values and the intensities of the colors, so that they all become part of that surface, and just don't slice it up and make it into
they all become
things.
Part of the surface.
Well, because you can imagine, you can trace a bunch of lines across a painting and then fill in the consequent areas with any kind of color. You can do that.
Right. The way I look at it, covering that without making a mistake over that, is working on the whole canvas at the same time and not forgetting to treat it.
Yes, that's one way. That's one way to remain conscious of the problem.
Right. The way I remain conscious of that problem, because I know exactly what you're talking about. The way I remain conscious of that is not to work on a simple space. It is like it's some alternative piece. The way I do it is by doing, not forgetting. Basically, I don't forget. I always have to remain aware of the fact that I've got this entire, character of a canvas. Has to be treated. It's constantly being treated, and I can never forget about it. And so the minute I am unaware of something, then I lose control, and that's it. So that's my way of reading.
Well, well, Titian, who's of course the ultimate example of everything. You take, say, the Rape of Europa. There's this. There's the bull in Europe, and they're sort of white, and then there's the water, and that's kind of green, and there's the sky, and that's kind of red, and then there's a little bit of blue in the middle of the painting, and it's a little bit of sky, and the mountains are blue. So, and the red in the sky, the dark red, comes down into the figures and into the thing. So in other words, he's got sky, bull, and Europa, and water, and you could divide those things up, but the colors do something completely different. They're not filling in the spaces, they're flowing through the thing. So you have a dynamic between the sky is not the blue is both mountain and a little bit of sky. The green is both, part of the mountains and part of the water. The red is part of the water, part of the sky, and in the figures.
About that. I mean, in a way, they're totally integrated. He's not just using the same colors. He's using the same colors, but in an integration. And Van Gogh mentioned that in like a marriage of colors, and how it was always creating something like basically a new baby of color.
Well, but that's an even farther thing. What I'm describing is something very simple. In other words, the shapes, the drawn shapes, if you like, and then there are these areas of color which do not correspond to the drawn shapes. See, the color flows around with its own logic, and then there's a dynamic between the drawing. And it's as if you could imagine that you can't. It's just something. It's a mental exercise.
Right.
Imagine the drawing being taken away, and you just have the color.
Right. When I do a drawing on my canvas, I'm paying attention to the drawing, but I'm also paying attention to the fact that I don't have to pay full attention to the drawing. I'm also paying attention to the color as well. So here's a certain way of putting it. Like if I go, I'm not having to always stay inside the lines. I'm going to use the brush to go all the way around things. I'm using the color to I'm pushing and pulling. It's like an ocean wave, you know. I'm not worried about the water getting in other places, you know, because I can always go over things, you know.
Well,
in a way. I mean, I don't know exactly how to
except that yeah. Well, that's it. But you see, Cabanel doesn't do that. Cabanel doesn't do that. He traces something out and then paints it's one color, and then there's something else and it's another color. So it's a little bit more like pop art,
or it's a little sharper.
It's a different kind of thing. Whereas Van Gogh, who's a much greater painter, or Renoir, there you can see that thing that Titian did, where.
Well, with Van Gogh, I don't think you can trace anything. That's just it. With Van Gogh, I don't know how you would trace anything with Van Gogh. It's kind of like he doesn't leave you that way of doing so. And I mean,
be a weird tracing.
Van Gogh was a sculptor. I mean, that was just kind of it. What I learned from Van Gogh was how to sculpt things. That's what I learned how to do with him. More than anything. Are you still there, Paul? I wasn't sure if Paul.
Oh God, you guys are. I'm lost audio here.
Huh?
I wanted to show.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I wanted to show one more thing because
Okay.
you were talking about tracing and stuff, and then you'd mentioned Van Gogh. One of the Van Goghs I wanted to show because it just totally gets outside the perspective of tracing, because it's impossible. You just can't trace with a Van Gogh, because the way I look at him is the same way I look at myself today, where I'm still learning. I'm still kind of learning how to develop skills is working with flat surface work in sort of the way you're talking about now, Paul. And I'm going to grab this Van Gogh because I developed so many skills as a sculptor, stuff that I think a lot of people, even today, don't or have a hard time doing. And to me, it was not difficult to start out with this stuff. It wasn't difficult at all. I don't know what you can see here.
I can see a pot.
Okay, good.
Back it up a little.
Okay, well, you want to see the whole painting. I'll show you the whole painting, but I want you to see the sculpted parts of the pot.
Yeah.
That's what's important in what we're talking about here. It's impossible to do like a tracing with this kind of stuff. You can't trace the sculpted works of these things. That's just it. You have to make placements, and I don't know how to describe it, but you can't really.
You're pointing out that paint can have a beauty of texture.
Right, that's just it. That's probably one of my favorite parts of painting.
Yeah, and that's very important, because Van Gogh, of course, is particularly wonderful in that way, in that the surface. I mean, you use the term sculpted. I would just say that the surface has a wonderful feel, because you feel the paint, which is beautifully put on.
Right. He had a fun time putting the paint on, for sure. You know.
Oh, hold on, I'm getting a phone call. I'll just turn off my mic.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. I'm not sure if Joaquin's still there. Hey guys, I'm probably gonna go. Actually, I need to get something to eat. I haven't had lunch yet today. So I'm gonna grab a bite. But I appreciate the conversation.
Hey, I'm back. You guys were rounding up all on your own.
Hey, Joaquin, I'm gonna grab a bite to eat, man. I gotta get something to eat. I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah, I gotta get some shut eye.
Yeah.
So does my dad. That's really why I had to. Yeah.
All right. Are you guys going away?
Yeah, we're going to.
All right. Well.
Man.
Okay.
All right. Well.
All right. Well, have a good one, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you too.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Bye. All right. Bye.
Sure.
Bye-bye. There he goes.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, let's round up. I guess we are rounded up. Wow. And there they were, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Rhodes, Oil Artworks, me, and we were glad to have you if you were watching. If not, the video's here to stay, probably. Be back soon with Natural Writing History, and maybe a new drawing. Might start showing those off now that these gentlemen have motivated me to make more art, quote unquote. And Disappearing Act.